I have always wanted to make a game. You might not know this, but I used to run a YouTube channel focused on game dev tutorials. To this day I have never published anything that's either complete or just, well, complete. At some point I did what any Jedi Master would do. I retreated to a trailer in a swamp and pivoted to web development.
This is totally different.
No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
But watching so many indie devs either succeed or at least give it a shot reignited my passion and dusted off an old dream, hence this video. I'm making a first-person base building, crafting, survival horror game. F me, that's a lot on my plate. But let's break it down piece by piece. Trust me, I might overshare a bit, but it will all make sense in the end. I love survival horror, Dead Space, The Forest, Bioshock, so much, just to name a few that resonate with me. One of the main things that stole my heart was the deep lore that was hidden within their worlds, scattered around and served in small chunks, something that would be for some reason only tied to Dark Souls franchise later on. Don't get me wrong, I love Dark Souls even more than I love Dead Space. So why not make a Souls-like, you ask? Well, probably you don't ask because you're on the brink of clicking away to watch Family Guy compilation with Subway Surfers gameplay in a tiny window at the bottom. So here you go, hyper-casual train jumping gameplay at the bottom of this video just for you. Anyway, Souls-like games tend to lean towards the artsy side of the spectrum. Imagine a diagram with two axes, one representing the complexity of graphics and the other the complexity of game mechanics. Dark Souls would be somewhere up here, so would Dead Space and The Forest. Generally, the top right corner is reserved for the AAA titles and the big game studios. Me, a humble indie studio, can't produce such good art. Nobody will give you more than I can promise you, said every generic prime minister ever. But I'm not going down this road. What I can do is, as shown on this graph, is position myself in areas with rather low graphics, however with up to complex mechanics. To wrap up the graphics talk, I've decided to emulate PlayStation 1 or PSX style, or something like Half-Life 2-ish. This requires more intellectual effort than artistic flair, but it involves researching textures and mapping them onto very basic 3D models, something well within my reach. What really pushed me towards that style was watching Pyrocynical's video on Total Chaos, a superbly crafted Doom mod.
Shut up, I don't want to
If you haven't yet, I suggest that you play it. The ambience of eerie exploration in an abandoned industrial complex reminds me of my day-to-day job on a ship. Pyro has created several insightful video essays on games, which are a treasure trove for anyone interested in game development. He meticulously dissects the lore and story of games, showing how some elements are masterfully crafted while others seem scrambled together in a rush while waiting for the subway doors to open. I might have watched a bit too much of his content, but I learned a lot. Here's what I took from his advice. Lore should be explained immersively, not dumped onto the player. The real challenge in a game comes from the threat of losing precious progress. A difficult game must also be fair. Games that are all in the head suck.
The best way to get into making games and experiences, but please, for the love of God, make the story about anything but all in the head.
Okay mate, chill out. Anyways, there are a few games from which I'll draw inspiration. I want to achieve the graphical look of Total Chaos, well polished yet technically with an ugly retro game visual style. Turpism, a word you might know if you played Wordle at least once, or I don't know, I never played it. Anyways, I've already implemented that style in my game, but the full picture requires a ton of assets yet to be added. More on that later. From Bioshock, I aim to capture the mood and theme of a fallen city. Similar vibes can be seen in Lies of Pi, and also Dead Space 2 showcase beautifully how a devastated city should look like. What they also did in Dead Space 2 is add lots of interior props like posters, which really bring the world to life.
Citizens are ordered to evacuate. Looters will be shot on sight. This is not a drill. Move immediately to the nearest evac.
I love that touch, and it allows me to let my creativity sparkle with mood-enriching touches like those iconic posters. This kind of world building is versatile. You can use it to enrich the lore, provide hints to players, or just have fun with all the puns and jokes you manage to squeeze in. Lethal Company and Exit 8 beautifully encapsulate tutorial aspects through real game objects. Meanwhile, the Forest franchise showcases an immersive crafting and gathering system, something that I aim to implement. Another unique aspect of the crafting system I love, which I've already integrated into my design, is the deconstruction system, similar to the one found in Prey. It's beautiful and immersive. Simple in their case, a bit too simple for mine, though a good starting point. Obviously the Fallout franchise is influential, but in their case it's more about the approach to gameplay. You have a rich storyline, but you can actually go anywhere you want. The crafting system they used will be an actually example of what to fucking avoid.
Throwing flashbang.
And not to mention the infamous "your settlement is under attack" meme.
Got word of a settlement that needs our help. We can use all the support we can get. I'll mark it on your map.
You can't keep getting away with it!
My game will probably be similar to the Voices of the Void and Abiotic Factor, both of which I discovered accidentally, trust me, really. True story. I'll try to draw the least amount of inspiration from them to distinguish myself. So what will my game actually be about? It's first person, so you play as someone. And by someone, I literally mean anyone. You are nobody, trying to survive in the harsh reality of the rich station. TLDR, lore summary: humans made a residence on an asteroid where the resources were scarce from the very beginning. That notwithstanding, they succeeded in establishing a thriving colony where the rich lived in luxuries of virtual reality, the poor were working on maintaining the colony's ecosystem, and the manual work was done by machines. The machines became smart, and then they went viral, and then they wipe out most of the population. Here's where the twist comes into play. We always see the copy-paste zombie outburst drama with zombies or mutants or whatever populating the planet, although it makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. Well, how's that shit gonna survive for more than a week without some maintenance team pumping nutrients into it 24/7? In Fallout franchise, it's subtly suggested that various monster types fight for some scarce resources required to their survival, specifically human flesh, especially evident in mutant populated areas adorned with numerous meatbugs in Fallout 3 and 4. In my case, it's the robot type enemy that you encounter. They will also undergo evolution-like process, kind of a survival of the fittest. The machines turned against each other as the necessary supplies became a scarcity. Whether it's gas or some fancy energy cores, that will be decided later. The narrative is propelled by scarce but unique NPCs, akin to those in BioShock. No spoilers, but there is an iconic character featured in all games arts and posters. His name is Rax, and he is a survivor. With his salvaged robot, he manages to make a nomadic living in the areas of the rich. He'll be an anti-hero. To say that he will be crucial to the story is an understatement. He is someone who should actually be the main hero of the game. If it started with premise that you, a noble player, will once again save some random fantasy world, but not this time. Rax is a fallen hero. He might have tried to save the city, but failed. He gave up and was left with the life of a lone wanderer, so accustomed to the setting that it provides no challenge. And then there is you, anyone, trying to basically survive in the barren underground world. You mean nothing to the world and you can die anytime at the hand of anyone. I'm contemplating a roguelike element for the game, perhaps introducing permadeath mechanics, which would reflect the lore's emphasis on being a replaceable pawn in a harsh world. However, with base building mechanics, this might feel a bit unfair. A balanced middle ground would be something akin to what Sons of the Forest offer. Respawning in an enemy camp as a hostage, and if you perish again within some time, you must reload from a save. But then saving mechanics should be balanced to prevent save scamming, which basically opens a can of worms. With rather good programming skills, I want to focus on what I can achieve, meaning great game feel, reasonable and enjoyable game mechanics, therefore the crafting and building system. For enemies, since they will be either survivors or mechanical monstrosities, I aim to opt for procedural animations. Again, something that can be written in code rather than created as an art or outsourced. I want the game to be challenging. not Souls-like challenging to the point that you stay up to 3 AM fighting the dancer boss as a level 1 naked man with a stick, true story by the way, but something that Don't Starve managed to capture perfectly. In Don't Starve, survival is technically straightforward. You must eat. You start your day by gathering stuff, but if you don't collect enough supplies by the night time, basically you're screwed. You can so easily fall into this self-propelling loop of running away from threats. You fight against the clock, but you also have health, sanity, temperature and light, all of which can kill you, and they work independently, meaning that you have to tackle them one by one. For example, when you gather enough food to fulfill your hunger, you might have lost most of your health or stranded away from your base to the point that you need to make a temporary camp to survive the night. This is another cool mechanics which drives the gameplay, this cycle of day and night. In Sons of the Forest it mostly affects the atmosphere. In Palworld it changes what kind of monsters you encounter. Abiotic Factor put a cool twist on that. The game is set in a fully automated scientific site, meaning during the night all the lights are killed and you are surrounded in darkness. Security robots wake up as well and will punch you if you come too close. The story is closed, it's the actual game title. It's a game about infinite and paranormal IKEA.
Well,
the world there
I've been
is
stuck in this
actually
one for
infinite
days.
and procedurally
Just
generated.
miles of
It's something that I
bookshelves,
initially also
beds,
wanted to do,
sofas.
but it would not
It
make
just
much
seems to
sense
go on
lore-wise
forever.
unless I made it a psychological
I've
horror
asked a
set in
staff member
player's
for
head.
help, but I
And
don't think
you
they're
remember
able to.
Pyro's advice? We need to get out of the head.
To open your mouth wider than that.
Xavier, I've analyzed the brain juice, the thoughts. They're coming from within your head. Get out of your head! Get out of your head!
The IKEA game also implemented the gather scavenge mechanic I want to do, which proves it can be done. Everything is pickable or destroyable. The items respawn every day, and this stems from the creepypasta the game is based on. That's something completely different. And also the game was built in Unity.
It's a bit dark, so just quickly just whack this down here. Lovely. Oh, it's so nice. It looks okay. Obviously, I think it's developed in Unity, so it has that Unity look.
Speaking of Unity, yes, I will be making my game in Unity, and here is why. Pirate Software always said to establish game scope and then choose the game engine accordingly.
Usually you don't choose the engine first, because that doesn't make a lot of sense, because you're like, well, I want to use this engine to make this kind of game. Wait a minute, and you find out you want to put something in the game that doesn't work with the engine anymore, and now you've wasted a bunch of time. So it's best to go from the top down. Always the best.
It's like when you need to repair something. First you assess the complexity of the damage, then you decide whether to use WD-40 or duct tape, before the actual repairman arrives and bills you 140 Australian dollars for a 5-minute job. For reference, see the cliche tradespeople parable seen in every Medium article about $1,000 worth of invoice, where $1 is for the labor and the rest $999 is for knowing that you are dense enough not to fix it yourself. And Unity is similar in this matter. If you can do something, you can just pay your way through the asset store and populate the game with inconsistent junk or random mechanics that in no way fit the theme or design of the game. But bear with me, I set out not to produce another asset flip Unity based piece of garbage. Whatever you think about Unity, it is a robust and battle tested engine. They fired the CEO, which is important, and if they again strike with some nonsensical revenue policy, I will simply go and cry in the corner. This game is an evolving project, where I already encountered many difficulties and challenges. Some were results of my own bad design choices, like when I couldn't get the inventory system working properly. I am still not exactly content with how the inventory system works. Most games utilize a drag and drop grid-based system with visible item icons and stacking, like for example in Don't Starve or even Dead Space. More uncommon is a text or list-based inventory system, like the one in the Fallout franchise or Deus Ex games. It was again tied in Fallout to the lore because of the Pip-Boy, and thus logical. I wanted to go for that system for some absurd reason and soon found out that although it works fine, looks even nice, it has tons of limitations. Not to mention the immersion break. Firstly, how do you restrict carrying capacity? In a grid-based system you have slots, but here we need to do something different. The weight system is a must for the realistic aspect. That was trivial to implement, but that was obviously not enough. I thought of a secondary numeric value of volume occupied by the item. My understanding was that you can carry it somewhere and it's up to players' imagination to fill up the gaps how the character actually carries it. That gave the player two-dimensional restrictions. Some items are heavy. On the other hand, how many empty bottles can you carry around? You cannot take 1000 of them just because they are light. Cargo pants can hold only so many after all, you know? This system would work perfectly if it wasn't for the crafting and equipping mechanics. My experience from Fallout in this regard is slightly negative, and actually I don't understand why I chose that system in the first place. In another devlog, surely I'll go through implementing a grid-based one. It is a loosely sewn together pack of mechanics with a fragment of the intended game world and implemented scope. I have put together some self-made assets to have a location for the prototyping. What I love about this simplistic PlayStation 1 graphics style is that it is very easy to extend on your own. Have a look at this fuse box. Would you believe if I told you that I took a picture of a random fuse box while on a walk and then just put it in the game? Another thing that improves the game feel, in my opinion, is the audio layer. The ambient soundtrack is one thing, but feedback from sound effects can save or kill a game. Have a look at this footage where the player picks up and tosses a plastic bottle. Or opens this door, or this roller door. AAA game, I know. You know when someone has ADHD as an adult? Probably you've already noticed that by the structure of this devlog, or the lack thereof. If you haven't clicked away already, speaking of, please have another piece of Subway Surfers. So ADHD in game development would be something like this. You are working on a comprehensive system like inventory, and then you make a 15-minute long detour to implement flickering lights. Ah, the flickering lights. But they look cool, no? You can already wishlist the game on Steam. It's 2024. Look, I need a dopamine boost to stay motivated. Not that I will abandon the project at some point, no. Even if I stall, I will know that there are people who know about it, and probably they even said something among the lines like, hey, I might play this at some point, which is nice. Because after all, I'm not making a game that I'll always wanted to play. Okay, maybe I am, but still, I'm making a game that you are going to play. So any feedback is greatly appreciated. My philosophy is that I should make something that will bring joy, or fear, as it is a survival horror, remember? Anyway, feel free to help me shape the future of this game. Share opinions, criticism and insights. Leave them in the comments or join my Discord. And stay tuned. It might be worth it.